Viewer strongly cautioned. The following review contains trace amounts of asbestos and rat feces. Well, we hope it's rat feces.
How do you follow a masterpiece? Can you follow a masterpiece? Not many of us will ever be put in a position to try and answer this question for ourselves, but I have to imagine that this particular situation is one of the most harrowing for any artist to be in. You spend years honing your craft and even more to actually create your art. And miracle of miracles, your art is met with critical acclaim and universal adulation. It's deemed culturally important, a veritable touchstone that future works will be measured by and compared to. But now, you want to create another project, despite now having to be at the mercy of heightened expectations. What if you don't meet them? What if you only had that one good thing in you and you ruin your legacy by refusing to acknowledge it? This was the dilemma that Shinichiro Watanabe was in when he developed Samurai Champloo. You can't overstate just how important and loved Cowboy Bebop is, not only as an anime, but as a piece of art. It has the power to convert even the most die-hard anime haters into watching and appreciating it. And more importantly, it serves as a wonderful gateway for curious people to get into the fandom. To create something new after directing something this monumental was only going to lead to a certain kind of failure. Not to say that Champloo is a failure or anything, but comparisons to Bebop, no matter how unfair, is going to happen. And it's not going to make Champloo look any good. Hell, this happened to anime that Shinichiro Watanabe had nothing to do with. Sorry, Outlaw Star. But, to Watanabe's credit, if the pressure got to him, he didn't show it, creating Samurai Champloo over 6 years after the Japanese debut of Cowboy Bebop. And in a move that seems almost like it was made on a dare, Champloo had almost nothing visually in common with Bebop. What was sci-fi is now Western by way of samurai, what's known as chanbara in Japan. And what was scored by jazz and blues in Bebop...
Now, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that we brought her out there. But that is how this peculiar case ended.
...is now scored by hip-hop.
Wait a minute! Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want!
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
And it all results in Samurai Champloo being one of my favorite anime of all time. But if you saw my top 10 favorite anime videos some years back, you'd already know that. So, where to begin with this? What about that name? Samurai Champloo. Odd sounding word, that last one. Champloo. Doesn't look Japanese, does it? It's certainly not an English word, so what does it mean? Well, Chanploo is actually Okinawan, a language set apart from Japanese, though sharing more than a few characteristics. Chanploo means to mix up, like in how you make stir-fry. So by extension, and counting the motifs in the show that are immediately obvious, the name roughly translates out to Samurai Remix.
Oh yeah! Get him!
Come on! The title will become even more fitting as we move on, but for now, let's introduce our characters. Jin, a wandering samurai who's reserved and serene by nature, Mugen, a brash ex-con who likes to start shit, and Fu, a young girl who ropes the other two in helping her find a samurai who smells of sunflowers.
So, what's the deal with this favor of yours?
There's someone I want you to find. A samurai who smells of sunflowers.
The initial plot follows the three as they journey to find said samurai, and befitting such a structure, the story is very episodic. Only a handful of episodes have anything that's directly involved with the search, with the majority of the show's run focusing on just the story of the day. Because of that, the overall story can feel unimportant at times. Because so much time goes by without anything happening in their search, it's kind of easy to forget why they're in this particular place at this time. In fact, even the show kind of points it out.
Something just occurred to me that I didn't think of before.
Like what?
Like, what the hell were we even doing going to Edo anyway?
This episode, by the way, came from everyone's favorite bit of filler, the recap episode. Yes, the ever-useful crutch for any and all television shows, the recap episode. For a series whose story is mostly episodic. Honestly, why does it matter that what happened in episode 5 happened before episode 6, since they had nothing to do with each other? They're completely interchangeable, so why is a recap even needed? Bebop also had an episodic narrative, but when it did veer back into Spike's arc, it dealt with it directly. Champloo, not so much. To be quite frank, there are only 5 episodes that deal with the 3 actually attempting to find the Sunflower Samurai, and that's including the first episode. It's occasionally brought up again here and there in other episodes, but the way it's handled feels almost like it's a B-plot. Put simply, the lack of a focused and tangible main arc is what keeps the series from being one of the classics. But that's not to say that the episodic plots themselves aren't fun or compelling, because they are. A lot of what makes Samurai Champloo work are the characters themselves and how they interact with each other. The chemistry between the main characters is fairly straightforward and typical of most anime. The sullen badass, the brash badass, and the tsundere character that gives the both of them a rough time for their constant bickering, but holds a soft spot for them over the course of the series.
That woman.
Bitch rolled us.
Get your act together! Losers!
We've certainly seen these characters before, and we've often seen them played against each other too. But Samurai Champloo does this so well that, just like Tenchi, they alone can drive the plot of a story. The usual story of a Samurai Champloo episode is that the 3 find themselves in a sticky situation, often by mistake. They pass through a town at the worst possible time, they happen upon something they shouldn't have, or their shenanigans finally catch up with them. In that way, the stories are pretty simple, but that's to the benefit of the characters. You don't need a complex story to let Mugen, Jean, and Fu be themselves. Some of my favorite episodes are just the misadventures of the 3, like when they accidentally stumble upon a gold counterfeiting scheme. The 3 find a sack of fake coins and decide to take advantage of their sudden good fortune.
Oh, yeah, I'm really stuffed. I can't remember the last time I felt so good.
Half woman, half pig.
But their luckiness bottoms out, and fast, and it quickly becomes a complicated night for Mugen, as he inadvertently bought an undercover agent as a prostitute for the night.
Hey! Look, there's a naked woman over there!
Huh? Gotta admit, you tough chicks really turn me on.
That's one thing I think Shinichiro Watanabe doesn't get nearly enough credit for. His sense of humor. Comedy is probably the last thing anyone would associate with Bebop, but there are plenty of genuinely funny moments in the show, and even more so in Champloo. The reason for that is that despite Watanabe at the directorial helm again, he was without Keiko Nobumoto, the lead scriptwriter for Bebop. Nobumoto is the unsung heroine of Bebop, directly responsible for more than I feel she's gotten credit for as well. Not only did she play in the whole series, but she personally penned the best episodes, Jupiter Jazz Parts 1 and 2, and The Real Folk Blues Parts 1 and 2. The thing about Nobumoto is that despite her strength in character writing, comedy simply isn't her forte. Not that she can't write good comedy, as evidenced by the fact that she wrote Cowboy Funk.
Now that I have both of you gentlemen here together, I will explain my reason for blowing up things. The reason is...
Let's settle this once and for all.
Damn it! You stole my line!
Why won't you listen to me?
Shut up!
But if you really want to know where her wheelhouse is, look no further than the series she worked on instead of Samurai Champloo, Wolf's Rain, which we will dive into more deeply on another Adult Swim month. But suffice it to say, Wolf's Rain will come with its own difficulties.
Right here. You're pretty good, kid.
Anime Abandon will return in a moment. Anime Abandon now continues.
So, without his right-hand woman, Watanabe hired Shinji Obara to be chief writer, who I can't really grab onto as far as his own contributions to Champloo. If he has a presence here, it's drowned out by Watanabe, the man who wrote Mushroom Samba.
Hey, mister. This here is the stairway to heaven. You know that, don't you?
Obnoxious little frog.
As well as the worst episode of Bebop, Boogie Woogie Feng Shui.
Universal feng shui is the science that reads these natural energies and applies them to everyday life.
Ice cream.
Huh?
Which certainly explains some of the more peculiar episodes of Samurai Champloo, like when the three were attacked by a bunch of zombie miners. Or when they all got high on reefer at a military checkpoint. But if I'm being honest, I kinda loved it when the show seemed to veer and drive off the reservation. Not that the drama in Champloo wasn't compelling, or even beautiful, because it often was. But the few and far moments where the show took a break from tradition to go down a more serious road, it often felt clunky and forced. Nowhere was that more painfully true than in the 7th episode, which was basically Waltz for Venus with a Chanbara paint job.
By the way, I met your mother yesterday. I imagine it would break her heart if she knew you were a thief.
Did you tell her I'm a pickpocket?
Of course not, how could I? I wouldn't want to make a good mom like that worry about her son.
At least when Samurai Champloo got weird, it got weird in an interesting off-kilter sort of way. And that would play into the running motif that goes throughout the entire show. In one of the later episodes of Champloo, the three are roped into playing baseball against some American soldiers with the fate of Japan resting in the balance. Now, this immediately sets off a ton of bullshit alarms for anyone who has a cursory knowledge of history, as satirical as this episode might be taken.
We're here for one reason. To establish trade between this country and the United States.
Well, demand whatever you want. I can't help you. An official edict has been issued that foreign ships are to be driven off. It's out of my hands.
What? Fuck them!
By the way, Watanabe wrote this script as well. If it somehow escaped your notice by now, Samurai Champloo is totally and completely unconcerned about being historically accurate. Even though the show is vague about what year it's supposed to be set in, we do know that it's the Edo period of Japan, which was between 1603 and 1868. Best guess is that this is towards the latter end of the era, where baseball certainly did exist in some rudimentary form, but I'll be damn skippy if beatboxing was.
Hit it!
Now, you may want to write this down, because you ain't gonna want to forget it. I do what other people can't do. And those who can't do what I do say I'm just not down with it.
Yeah, beatboxing. There's also a rap breakdown, too.
Yo! Huh. On the peaks in the snow, he's a spooky mofo. Everything's gone a loony, because the mountain's haunted by Yoshitsune.
Oh, it's gotta be the ghost!
Yoshitsune.
Yeah, boy.
Who's that? Who do they mean?
He's fat, he's fly, he's tall as a sky. Always grabs his rocks when the bitches walk by.
Typical. The black man is always trying to steal the Japanese man's music.
Don't qualify it.
From tagging to punk haircuts, this is a 19th century Japan that simply did not exist. The hairstyles are especially noteworthy since it delves into a certain theory about anime design, and that hair color is supposed to be non-diegetic. The reason that anime is filled with characters of outrageous hairstyles and color is that it helps visually define and differentiate characters. If you've seen my review of Odin, then you know that keeping characters' hair to the bog-standard brown or black can really make it hard to figure out who is who. So, by that reasoning, the audience sees a man with bright pink hair, but the characters would see a nondescript brunette, probably. Except here in Samurai Champloo, the characters bring it up directly.
Hey, Fu, is it just me or does this guy talk kind of weird?
Oh, I'd say he's talking pretty weird.
Do his eyes look blue to you?
They are, they're blue.
It's not blue.
And check out the red hair.
Yeah, it is red.
Allow me to introduce. I am Joji. I am Japanese, born and raised. Do you not believe I speak truth?
Come on! I'm as Japanese as sushi and pannenkoeken!
There's only so long you could go on in a series like this without becoming meta and aware of how much you're bending the space-time continuum over a rail.
Someday I'll make you cry like a little bitch.
Little bitch, do people actually say things like that?
There's even a character who, despite living and breathing in the time in which the show is set, is able to narrate to the audience about future events he would have no way of knowing or even be alive to see.
And now the hands of the clock turn back more than 100 years. My name is Manzo Sakami. I'm with the secret police.
New warriors often find allies among those damned by society.
He's like a meta Doctor Who. God, this is a weird series. Strangely, though, I can see why the series seems hell-bent on giving historical accuracy a kick to the gooch, and it's rooted in Japan's actual history. The period that I briefly mentioned some time back, the Edo period, was one of extreme isolation. The island was closed off from the rest of the world, allowing only a handful of countries to trade with them, and only in designated cities and areas around Japan. Hence why everyone is tripping over themselves to capture this Dutchman.
Here in our land of the rising sun, even if dogs and cats and worms are allowed, there's no law that says we have to accept foreigners!
We need to make Japan great again. I personally guarantee that I will get the Chinese to build us another wall. The Dutch were one of the very few that were allowed to trade with Japan, and through them, Japan had an influx of new technology and sciences. The Dutch were so instrumental in Japan's technological expansion that they literally named the study of Western science Rangaku, or Dutch learning. So, in a period that was marked with economic prosperity, but also near total isolation, there was still outside influences that crept their way into the Japanese way of life. And the concept of outside influences is the calling card of Shinichiro Watanabe. What started as a means of stylizing an anime with Bebop ended with Champloo's mise-en-scène being totally predicated upon the notion of outside influence. Bebop used its American influence to either pay homage to certain works or to create a moody atmosphere. Champloo, meanwhile, has no interest in homaging any particular piece of American culture, and the only atmosphere it's intending to create is a threatening one.
I don't get it. What are they, crazy? I mean, why would those Americans want to come all this way just to do something like that? What a bunch of troublemakers.
You cannot get any more literal than that. Thanks a lot, American expansionism. But if Bebop is outside influence made seamless and realized, Champloo is the awkward growing pains of such a notion. The styles clash and fight with each other, and it takes a lot of energy and effort to groove to it. I could certainly understand why Champloo isn't held in the same regards as Bebop. It's rough, it's messy, and it revels in being odd for odd's sake. But that's why I like it. At its worst, the show tries to be Bebop again, and it falls pretty hard on its face. But when it's at its best, it's a slick yet grimy action show with one of the best and most diverse soundtracks in anime. I mean, this is still a Shinichiro Watanabe directed anime, and the man certainly knows how to direct a scene to music. Also, this is one of the last great dubs that Pioneer ever produced, and they left no stone unturned in getting the right people for their cast. The always awesome Steve Blum is a perfect Mugen, and Kirk Thornton brings some much-needed nuance to what could have been a wet blanket character in Gene. Likewise, Kari Wahlgren balances Fu's bratty moments with a vulnerability that exceeds the trappings of your typical tsundere type of character.
After you find the Sunflower Samurai, what do you intend to do?
That's a good question. I should probably think about that.
Perhaps I should.
You know, I don't really want to think about stuff like that right now. If you did, then that jerk Mugen would...
If you haven't seen this, then I highly recommend it. It's a bone cruncher of an action show, and just weird enough to stick with you after everything is said and done. But our last stop on Adult Swim month is bearing down on us. And you know what they say, nothing can happen until you swing the bat. Till next time.